continue to bring you more updates on the Myanmar, Thailand earthquake as they come in. But moving on now to the Middle East, Hamas has agreed to a Gaza ceasefire proposal presented by mediators Egypt and Qatar, according to the group's chief al-Hayya. In a televised speech, he said Hamas had accepted the plan and urged Israel not to undermine it. The proposal reportedly included the staggered release of Israeli hostages, with 5 being freed each week. This is what they said.
كانت تظن إسرائيل أنها تصنع معادلة جديدة في أن تتذرع بذرائع واهية من أجل أن تقتل وأن تدخل إلى هذه الأماكن المختلفة وأن تعتدي على الضاحية والبقاع والجنوب، فهذا أمر مرفوض.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office, however, has submitted a counter-proposal after reviewing the terms. Officials say it was drafted in full coordination with the United States. Egypt had earlier reported positive indications from Israel regarding a potential agreement, but it remains unclear if the two sides are close to a deal. Meanwhile, Hamas's armed wing has released a new video showing an Israeli hostage pleading for his release. The 3-minute-long footage features Elkanah Bobot, who was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival during Hamas's October the 7th attack. We are now joined by Devika Chopra, senior editor of NewsX. Thank you very much for joining us, Devika. Hamas has accepted this temporary 50-day ceasefire proposal, Devika, but Israel has come back and rebutted. What can you tell us about these negotiations, and why are they going to be proved to be so difficult?
Very interesting question there. So Hamas has allegedly agreed to freeing 5 Israeli hostages in exchange for the 50-day ceasefire. Now, Hamas's chief al-Hayya, he 2 days ago said that he received a proposal from mediators in Egypt and Qatar, and that they've dealt with it positively and they've accepted it. So it boils down essentially to 2 factors currently. Israel wants the release of 10 hostages instead of 5, and Israel wants Hamas disarmed. Hamas, meanwhile, has agreed to release only 5 hostages right now, while its chief, al-Hayya, has said that Hamas's weapons are a red line and that it will not disarm till the Israeli military continues to, quote-unquote, occupy Gaza. What's interesting is that there were 251 hostages that were taken by Hamas. 58 apparently remain in Gaza, including 34 who the Israeli military claims are dead. But what's more important to note is that Israel is not directly involved in the talks in Doha and is essentially speaking in consultation with the US. But stopping the Israel-Hamas war doesn't seem to be on the priority list for US President Donald Trump, whose administration is currently focused on talks vis-a-vis the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It entirely depends on whether the mediators then in Egypt can convince Hamas to agree to the terms and conditions and demands of Israel, because Israel has not given any signal so far that it certainly wants to end the war. So that's the current situation that one is really looking at. At the end of the day, it seems as though Hamas is expecting some sort of a gesture, a trust-building gesture from Israel. That becomes a very tricky situation, because that's exactly what Israel is expecting out of Hamas, given that Hamas was the group to attack first. They were on the offensive, and Israel ever since has claimed that they have been on the defensive. Therefore, it really now remains to be seen whether the mediators in Egypt and Qatar can somewhere convince Hamas that perhaps it is the militant group that will have to take some of those first steps to let Israel know that they are in for some serious talks for a full and final solution. We're looking at the possibility of a 50-day ceasefire if some terms and conditions are met right now. What's really going to be important in those 50 days is whether the mediators will be able to convince both sides on coming up with a larger plan to end the conflict, because essentially what Israel wants and has said and has maintained since day one, since the day of the attacks is that it wants complete end and destruction of Hamas. How do you really convince Hamas to give Israel what it wants? That's what the job currently, that's the job that's being done in Doha currently. Over to you.
Devika Chopra, thank you very much for joining us. We now have some more breaking news coming in. Russian forces have